You're listening to Second Cut. This is the weekly podcast where we talk about topics in film theory, criticism, history, etc. Because, that's what we do. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who is really deep in contemplation about my place in the world right now.
I'm Sam, and I'm the one who thinks all this war seems rather silly, really.
I'm Kieran. I'm the one that really wishes I'd preferred intertitles for this. The best I've got is this, where I hope that I spelt that written it backwards correctly.
It is backwards, just backwards.
And therefore, it's correct for me when I hold it like that because I wrote it backwards. Anyway, yeah, I'm the one who.
It's not correct for the camera.
Nope. Should have written it forwards.
I was going to say, I should have not tried to be clever. Yeah, maybe I'm the one that should have not tried to be clever. I'm the one who. Just like this movie, everyone wishes would shut up and be silent.
With just a soundtrack to tell us how you feel about
synchronized soundtrack, obviously.
And it's modern. It has nothing to do with the actual era you were from.
Nope.
Post-recorded.
That's the word.
Yeah. We watched war movies because yesterday I chose the term Remembrance Day, which is what you guys use, because it sounds more, I don't know, reflective than Veterans Day, which is
the technical name is Armistice Day, isn't it? It's Armistice.
Yeah. I mean, the date it's tied to is the armistice at the end of World War One, isn't it? So that's why it's the date it is, and on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, etc.
Yeah, because it's the end of that, not the signing of the Treaty of Versailles, which I just looked up was June 28th, 1919. For some reason, I thought it was that date, but no, it wasn't.
I would have assumed that it was that. And while I don't know what it's like specifically in the UK and in Europe at large. Obviously, the world wars affected Europe at a different level than it did the United States. But we kind of celebrate November 11th as just a day to, think about all of the troops from all of the wars, all of them.
I think it's weird in the naming of it, because Veterans Day makes it sound like the only people we care about are the soldiers, whereas Remembrance Day makes it think about all of the lives lost in the sort of, the just everybody in general, the famine and everything like that, and specifically, non-specific. Although it started from World War One, it's now all wars in general.
Yeah. Well, it starts to mark the world wars in particular. But then you look. I mean, I have been to a few remembrance services in the past. And they're usually in a park. Near like the town cenotaph. War memorial. And obviously, because wars have continued since, you get veterans there, of the first Gulf War and Falklands and Iraq and Afghanistan, and all the conflicts since as well. So it's very much become like a way to mark loss of life, throughout all wars, really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm double checking. There's a term, thankful villages. Which is coined in 1936, I believe, essentially where, at least for the First World War, and I think they've now extended to the Second World War, where the people that went to fight from that village or town, nobody died. So there's a special now term for it. And the fact I think, I've got here... in October 2013, researchers identified 52 civil parishes in England and Wales from which all serving personnel returned. There are no thankful villages identified in Scotland or Ireland yet, or all of Ireland was then part of the UK. So it's just kind of weird that sort of in the entire sort of several countries, and I mean now this is if you add everyone from those four countries together, a good 70 odd million, and all the kind of little townships and parishes and stuff like that. Only just over 50 of them, if you can think of World War One and World War Two. And I think it's something like there are sort of like 10 doubly thankful where they manage both of them. But it's like the odds of that are astronomical when you think about it. What is it? World War II, sort of 2.5% of the population died, whatever, and not just from the conflict. It's from, all the bombs and air raids and the lack of clean water and the food and all that kind of thing.
Nuclear radiation.
Yes, they had Oh yeah, in Japan, yeah. So and all that kind of thing. So yeah, strangely enough, for war movies, we didn't do Godzilla or Oppenheimer.
we also didn't do ones that are modern, at least. We didn't do any modern sort of like typical war movies where it's an action movie and it's about the glory and stuff like that, because I mean war isn't glorious. I mean, I hope that's not a controversial statement. It's at least maybe it was back when like you got hit with one musket shot and you could possibly not die. But with the introduction of like mustard gas and machine guns and trench warfare and just the mass murder that took place in World War One, just not a great time all around. Very traumatic to humanity at large, but also the places that were specifically affected by it, like in France and Belgium, Germany, just all across Europe for sure, and Africa. Yeah.
By the way, just on the gas thing, as a general historical aside, do you guys know about the first usage of gas in warfare as an offensive weapon?
I know stuff about the guy who invented it, but not about like the use of
Haber Bosch, yeah. So it was used by I think it's the Germans on the Russians at the Austerlitz fortress. I'm double checking my things on August 6th, 1915. So this is the first kind of mass use of, I think it's chlorine gas for an attack. And obviously they'd no idea what was happening. And most of them kind of died. The Germans then went in, but there was 100 or so that were still alive. And they put like wet rags over the face to try and kind of, stop it. And got their kind of, the guns again and charged back out, and the Germans were just like, what the hell is this? And we thought we'd killed them all, and there's like ghostly kind of like soldiers coming back out of them. They eventually stopped it, but it got written off as like the attack of the dead men. It's just like, this is terrifying. Like, you've killed them all, and then suddenly there's still Russians half bleeding from the eyes or whatever running back at you.
Yeah, I mean, it was like the war. That kind of World War One was like the war that like these new terrifying kind of ways of killing each other like started coming through. Previously you kind of knew you knew where you're at with guns and charging on horseback and stuff like that. But this you had grenades, you had machine guns, you had early tanks, obviously planes and bombs and gas. It's just,
I was going to say, let's acknowledge the fact that planes had only been around for like 5-6 years at this point.
Yeah. And then on the troop part of it, like for a lot of people in these wars, they were conscripted. They may not have wanted to be there. They went through terrible things, and how just or unjust the war was. How whether you perceive war as something that's necessary, inevitable, or just a terrible tragedy. I do feel for any troop that is involved in it and goes through experiences that I would not be capable of doing.
Yeah. Also excited about that, like you join up with your friends, from your hometown. You're going off on an adventure, to fight the good fight and everything like that. It's that's kind of the message that was given out.
Nobility is marketing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, reports and surveys of a lot of the kind of World War One veterans, kind of, including the ones that have kind of lost like an arm and a leg and stuff like that. They'll say all these horrible things that we saw and people blown to bits, and they go, was it awful? And they go, to be honest, I actually quite enjoyed it because it was fun. It was an adventure. It was the thrill and adrenaline when it gets going. Unlike in some of the trench warfare, where it is just an awful lot of sitting around and not doing anything, and the boredom half the time would kill you, if it wasn't a trench foot or anything like that. So you get these weird kind of ambivalences in regards to it.
Yeah.
Well, and how much of that too is a coping mechanism with the stuff that was really bad. Like, it actually wasn't that bad back then. It was like, oh, you have a little bit of cowardice in you. You need to drink some more and shove it down.
Yeah.
What was the term they used for PTSD? I don't remember.
Shell shock.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Back then, obviously, you just sent off a bit further, behind the front line just to recuperate. But literally, they didn't have much idea about what many of the soldiers were going through. They're just, as you kind of said, you're just seen as like sniveling cowards or men of a nervous disposition, But they'd obviously just been through absolute hell, and literally, it was PTSD before we had a name for it.
Yeah, even like the sound and vicinity of like shelling would be terrifying. Just the fact that people are firing in your direction, not great. Even if you aren't taking hits.
Yeah. I mean, just to bring it kind of like a bit more of a personal story. So, city I'm in, Bradford. There's a big memorial in the city centre to the Bradford Pals Battalion, which is what they were known as. The 16th Battalion of the West Yorkshire Regiment, and it's quite well documented online. So it's here by September 1914, 1,000 men had enlisted from Bradford and formed the new 16th Battalion of the West Yorkshire Regiment. By February 1915, a further 1,000 men had enlisted. And when it came to the Battle of the Somme, in the first day, sadly, 527 of those men were killed or wounded. And by the second day, this number had risen to 1,039 men out of the initial 2,000 men who had joined the battalion. So over half of the troops from Bradford sadly lost their life in Battle of the Somme. It's I'm not sure how it compares to like units from other kind of areas in the UK, but it seems quite high kind of death toll there, tragically.
Yeah.
Some places just got hit worse than others.
As far as war on film goes, I mean, there's a lot of different kinds of war movies. There's propaganda war films. There's just, sort of actiony, they may be thoughtful and they may show that war is hell, but, there's still a more positive bent or message to it. I think of something like Lone Survivor with Mark Wahlberg, or... we just watched Hurt Locker. Like, there's a lot of bad stuff in it, but it plays around with like the troops' lives and their thoughts on what's happening. But it does also, in a sense, I would say, glorify the people doing Jeremy Renner's job.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I've talked about this before in our previous kind of war film episode, but I think basically since like Saving Private Ryan, that tends to be like the default for war films now, doesn't it? It's going to be immediate and visceral and kind of really putting you on the ground, in the boots of the troops, But back the earlier kind of war films, closer to the conflicts they were actually depicting. I think there are a lot more variations in how kind of the war and the experiences of the soldiers was depicted. Various different ways of doing it, different takes on the events.
I mean, you do spot weird things in just war films, that are very interesting. I remember watching many years ago, sort of early parts of no, it must have been late 2017, early 2018, something around that. I can't remember. No, it must be mid sort of February, March. I'm trying to remember exactly when I watched Sons of Iwo Jima because it was on TV and watched that. And there's a scene in that where there's just been a battle and they're hiding kind of in the trenches, and somebody calls out. Is it John Wayne? I think is it his character, Stryker, and just calls for him. And they go, "Oh, that's one of ours. You have to go help him." And he tells them to stand back because they don't know if it's an enemy soldier trying to lure them into a trap. And so they're just sat there for ages. And there's a great shot of just like it's all quiet and it's just a close up on John Wayne's face for about 30 seconds with a guy calling for him in the background. And bearing in mind the rest of the film's quite sort of not upbeat, but it's not like darkly visceral like that. I was just like, oh, that is so awesome. I'm going to make something out of that. And eventually went and changed that for a short story idea, which went to for an assignment. And then I got it published with Siren's Call a couple of years ago. I changed it to the idea of they stumble upon like a witch's house and hide
Yeah.
there. And then it's the voice of one of their friends, and they go, "Don't go out because it might be the witch that's going to kill us. You know, if we give away our position." And they have to just sit with it. So there's just these weird little moments in a lot of the stuff where you do have just pockets where you can go really deep into the strangeness of stuff and just really explore it. One of the things that if you can like anything about the Russia-Ukraine conflict going on at the moment, the first couple of weeks after it started, there was rumors, I don't know if you caught it, of a mysterious airship that had apparently taken down a load of the Russian planes that they called the Ghost of Kiev, which was just flying around and taken down, and nobody knew who it was, and it was like this Guardian ship, whatever. Unfortunately, they said we made this up for kind of morale propaganda purposes. I'm like, oh no, because people have been doing that the whole time. There was there's an anecdote that in one of the attacks on Constantinople, I think it was, there was seeing the ghost of Athena patrolling the battlements as well, and people are. Arthur Machen, who wrote The Great God Pan, one of Stephen King's kind of favorite horror stories, along with some others, he was writing about kind of ghosts in the trenches of World War One and things like that. So you do get these really weird kind of things bleeding into the war, and I think just because it's a dark, visceral time, it's ripe for stories, it's ripe for filmmakers, it's ripe for these moments of character amidst all the thrill and excitement of the clamor of battle.
I also don't think glorification is inherent to all war films either. I think we've talked about are they all sort of inherently conservative? Maybe that's about action films more than war, but it's in both the eye of the beholder and the intentions of the creator. I don't think you can blanketly say all war films are this, except for within the genre of war film.
Yeah. Definitely that, any more than somebody like me. You can go to a concert by Sabaton, who are a band who pretty much all their songs are about military history, and say, oh, this is glorifying things, when they've got songs about kind of the Panzerkampf invasion, with the German armies going into. It's like you go, oh, this is glorifying the Nazi regime. Well, no, it's not, but it is now a tale and part of history, and they're kind of writing music about it.
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of military history buffs, who collects, old firearms, and kind of war memorabilia and stuff, but they're anti-war at the same time. They just find the subject matter interesting, and really kind of go into detail on it, but they don't advocate for conflict or anything.
I will quickly say, before we move on to the first film, probably, I quickly dug in my old folder of stuff I collected from gigs for anything that I got from Sabaton. I found an old little mask that they used because they did a song on the Attack of the Dead Men, and at the front they got a load of people giving out these kind of gas masks, sort of branded gas masks. I'm like, oh, I'll take one of those. And at the end, as part of their confetti cannon, they had, instead of just paper, they'd got it printed out, and I cannot find it. But it was kind of a little, almost like poster kind of paper slip of somebody, and with a few missing bits in wooden legs. And it's like, the war took my arm, the war took my leg, I enjoyed the war, sort of thing. It's great fun. Anyone that likes military history, go to a Sabaton concert. They're great.
I think along the lines of war stories too, there are people who are inherently heroic, but what we define as heroic in war isn't necessarily doing bad stuff. It's going against the grain of war. It's saving people. It's being the person who said, oh, I'm not going to do this thing, I'm not going to sacrifice my people, or I'm going to do something that all of these people were heading into a trap, and I did. So it's those kinds of things that are against the typical action of war that is more heroic than Chris Kyle killing a bunch of people.
Again, Sabaton. Sorry, I'm a Sabaton person. I'm very annoyed. I'm not seeing them next year where they've got a full orchestra, but they have a song. This is film related. They have a song that they now end all their concerts with about Audie Murphy, who they're wanting to star in a load of war films and westerns and stuff like that. Who, amazingly enough, I think it was in the 50s, wrote a book about his experiences in the war. called To Hell and Back, which is what they named the song after. And then they made a film of it. He starred as himself, and he was very annoyed because there's a moment when he was kind of under fire and he jumped on top of a tank and held off like a kind of platoon of German troops. He was the only one still there until reinforcements could arrive. And he was there on top of this, like piloting the turret for about an hour. And they reenacted it for the film, and he was very annoyed because they got the wrong type of tank. Imagine having to explain that. It's like, that's the wrong tank. How would you know? I was the one that was doing it. You know, that whole album is every single song is about an individual. It's called Hero, so they pick out one person kind of all throughout history,
amazing.
or a group of people. And hilariously enough, one of the lines that, I mean, they based the whole thing. He wrote a poem called "The Crosses Grow on Anzio." About he took part in the Battle of Anzio, which is a small town, probably about 150 miles south of Rome, I think it is. Something like 60,000 people died in that battle. He was one that survived, obviously, and he wrote this poem. They used that for part of the thing. But one of the lines that Savadon put in there is, if there be any glory in war, let it rest on men like him. You know, the ones that went out there and did these things. And
the things
went to hell
Audie
and
Murphy did were killing the most people. Like that, unfortunately, that's what he is notable for. And like, people will say, oh yeah, he killed Nazis, but like, I mean, how many Nazis were just regular people? I mean, for even if they have bad ideology, you know, they are still people being needlessly murdered because Hitler was a bad guy, you know.
And,
I mean,
and the one thing we'll state with these three films is that two are about from the First World War, and one, Thin Red Line, is the second, isn't it? And all of them are from a Anglospheric viewpoint. I think we did discuss possibly.
It would be weird if it was like pro-imperial Japanese.
No, but I mean, there obviously was a consideration to do All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah.
Which obviously is a German viewpoint. What we haven't done, we've gone war movies. What we haven't done is done something about, I don't know, the Japanese-Chinese war.
We should.
Yeah, I mean, one of us could have done on Letters from Iwo Jima, I suppose, but obviously that is made by an American, you know, and it does.
American World War II is always focused on the Eastern Front. Like that is the primary, you know,
Pacific
area of interest.
We've done war.
That's where you did most of your work.
Yeah, we've done war films. What we haven't done is we haven't got any, I don't know, film from Africa about a conflict between two African nations. You know what I mean? It's very Anglocentric in that sense, and we do acknowledge this.
Yeah, I think if we do this again next year, mate, I think one of us needs to at least do Battle of Algiers, I think, and then we can pick some more wide-ranging ones as well.
Yeah, or a conflict that isn't specifically kind of from an Anglo-centric point of view.
Yeah. The Sino-Japanese movie would just be so bleak. I don't think. I think I'd be interested in watching like Japanese propaganda films or something from that time, but
like some of the ones that Kurosawa did in World War II.
Yeah, but yeah, Battle of Algiers is good. Like anything where it's like a colonial force, you know, just forcing Africa into a pointless fight. Yeah, but
I mean, it's not this, but do we argue that Howl's Moving Castle is a war film?
Yeah. So it's definitely the most war film of any of. Well, next to The Wind Rises, I suppose that's unequivocally a war film.
Because
Miyazaki's done at least two definite war films.
I thought he was big on like World War II pilot stuff. I thought that was.
Well, flying is in most of his movies because his dad built planes and air parts for kind of the Japanese fighters in World War II, and he's always felt a pang of guilt about that. So when the whole Iraq invasion,
that's what The Wind Rises. Yeah, that's what The Wind Rises is about. Basically, that character the lead character is an insert for his dad, essentially. In his experience.
And obviously, Howl's Moving Castle, that war is his reflection both of that and the U.S. invasion of Iraq. Yeah. So it's very kind of poignant on that front. And obviously, we have to remember that several years before that movie, he didn't go to accept his Oscar because he didn't want to go to a country that was currently invading Iraq. So maybe we could do something along those lines next year, whatever, if this becomes a running theme.
Kieran, speaking of airplane parts, you watched something, a movie.
Yeah, for the second time, because I thought this was a good chance to go back in time, and although we kind of we poke fun at the Oscars whenever we can. The Oscars for me, I've said this before, it's weird. It's like we'll make fun of it until it backs up our viewpoint, and then it's absolutely amazing. You know, oh, this proves it's got all the awards, yeah, and then it's like, the Oscars are stupid. They didn't.
I mean, I wouldn't say I make fun of the Academy Awards. I'd say that they're just kind of a popular barometer for like what is good film in this year, sort of generally, regardless of who wins. It's more about like the body of nominations, in my opinion.
Let's be honest, Sinners will get nominated, but it won't win anything next year. Or they'll give it something for original screenplay, just to go, look, we're diverse anyway. Right.
We nominated a black person. There,
yes.
Shut up.
We're going to give them a token award. Right, let's move on with our life. That's going to be what happens. But yeah, so went and watched Wings. I've already seen it, so watching it again. It's a very long time ago. I'm fairly sure I reviewed it for the Film Magazine a number of years ago.
You did, yes.
Joe told me that. That's the only reason I know.
1921, yes. Is Joe in the chat?
No, Joe. I told him what we were doing, and he mentioned it separately.
Yeah. So I'd forgotten what I rated. What did I rate it? 17 out of 24. Okay. It's kind of famous for two things. One, for one specific dolly shot, and two, being the first ever Best Picture winner at the Oscars. Those are the reasons that people watch it. Let's be fair. You don't kind of go specifically seeking out this film and go, oh, this looks interesting. No, you go seek it out for those two historical reasons. It is a film which is, and explicitly states at the start in its title, this film is dedicated to the men who kind of fought in the airs and above Europe during the First World War, and the brave soldiers and veterans. We honor them through this film. And essentially is about...
And also it should have the women with champagne. It's dedicated to them as well.
Obviously, yes. Champagne Women is definitely what this movie is about. So it stars Charles Buddy Rogers and Richard Allen as two young men who are initially in a small town, kind of vying for the attentions of a girl, Sylvie Lewis. But with Mary Preston, who is played by Clara Bow, desperately in love with Jack. And they
she's been permanently friend zoned, doesn't she? And he's destined to never notice her until it's too late.
Yeah,
that old chestnut.
I was going to say, where have we heard this before? Yeah, there is quite a bit of melodrama in this movie. This is a melodrama in pretty much every kind of sense of the word.
If you've ever seen Birth of a Nation, it's like that, except like sepia tone.
Yeah, and slightly less racist.
True.
And
very pro-French.
Yes, and there's planes and not horses. There's planes going through clouds rather than horses going kind of down dusty streets and through rivers. Anyway, Jack and David sign up for the Flying Corps, and they go through boot camp, and then they go off to France. And there's stuff going on. Mary becomes an ambulance driver. Jack gets quite a bit of nomination. I think he shoots down a couple of things, so he's quite good. When they get to Paris, she finds him kind of drinking and trying to forget everything and drunk, and there's a skirmish where she's kind of struck off and taken back to the US. And then kind of the last third of the film, because that's kind of almost a second section of the film, is kind of, getting to know the characters and the initial kind of flying bits. There's the bit in Paris before they're drafted back out again. And the third kind of section, David gets kind of shot down behind enemy lines, and Jack thinks he's dead. They've now become friends. He manages to steal a German aircraft and fly back again, but Jack's in the sky and thinks, German aircraft, I'm going to avenge my friend. And shoots David down, and he's like, yeah, I shot down the Germans, and gets to the ground where they kind of pull the fight out of the wreckage. It's like, oh god, that's my friend, and David kind of forgives him. Don't worry, it's okay, stick to your story. You shot down a German aircraft, that's all you did. And right at the end, there's a little poignant bit where Jack takes David's kind of possessions back to the family and ask, can you please forgive me? And the parents go, "It wasn't you that killed our son. It was the war." Da 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 da. And then we have
Beauty killed the beast.
Indeed. It was nature rather than the individual. It's society's fault. And we have our big poignant climax. And yeah.
Also, how old is this movie? It's so old that Paramount famous Lasky is the producer and not just Paramount. Or Players Lasky.
Yeah, so there's loads of kind of interesting stuff behind the scenes of this. Obviously, it won the first Best Picture Oscar. Let's get this bit out of the way. I did watch the other 2 films nominated that year, and it's weird. There we go. I got my catchphrase in. Because and I do not understand this. Okay, there were 12 categories. Okay, outstanding picture. Best Directing, Comedy. Best Directing, Dramatic Picture, for some reason. Best Actor, Best Actress, and we'll get onto those in a minute, because those are weird categories. Best Writing, Best Writing Adaptation, Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, Best Engineering Effects, and Best Writing, Title Writing for your titles. But there's a final category, which is Best Unique and Artistic Picture. This is different to the Best Picture, which is called Outstanding Picture. Yeah. I don't understand what the point of splitting those in, because the winner from the other one was Sunrise by F.W. Murnau. Yeah. And it's just is this different to Best Picture? Oh, it's an Outstanding Picture, and this one is Best Artistic and Unique Picture. It's what's the difference?
Kieran, you know why? Because at this point,
Murnau was German, that's why.
Oh, yeah. Even more so than now, film was just a cynical business where it's let's make as much money as possible. I bought out every theater in the tri-state area. Yeah. I'm going to own the means of production.
Yeah. Also, please bear in mind, as far as I can work out, kind of the Academy Awards was just the celebration of and giving out the awards. Everything had been decided 3 months earlier that what's going to happen, and this is just literally get together and pat each other on the back sort of thing. It's already been done. It's like graduation. You've already got your results in. Here we just have a big party and go well done, well done, well done, sort of thing. Here's your little statuette, thing like that. Some of these
I want to know how Best Directing comedy did not end up in either picture category.
Yeah, but Best Directing Dramatic, Seventh Heaven, gets nominated for Outstanding Picture and doesn't win. Yeah. For some reason. You get in Best Actress...
Are there any planes in Seventh Heaven? No, that's why.
There's some tanks. There's some battle scenes. They're in France. So it's a war movie, kind of a war movie in France. Because I have seen that, because I did watch also The Racket. By the way, Mark, formerly of TFM, is a big fan of The Racket. So shout out to Mark. Hope you're listening for this one. Sorry it didn't win. But yeah, you get in Best Actress. For some reason, in this, I think they change it for subsequent years. Essentially, the nominations, you get almost nominated for a body of work over a certain time period. So Janet Gaynor gets
That's cool.
for 3 different films. Seventh Heaven, which gets Best Directing and gets nominated for Outstanding Picture, but doesn't win. Street Angel, and also in Sunrise, which gets the artistic and unique picture, but not Outstanding Picture. It's just mind-bogglingly, stupidly weird.
That's how they should do it. It should be based on you were in multiple good movies. And you can't be in bad ones either. Pedro Pascal can only get it if he's only been in good movies.
Yeah, and you have to have done multiple movies, 3, in order to have a chance of failing at one of them,
I mean, I guess people like Leo would be in trouble then, because he makes one movie every year and a half or whatever.
And then you look at engineering effects, which is essentially Wings get it for the soundtrack and stuff like that. Because although this was a silent film, essentially Paramount knew that Warner Brothers were doing something called The Jazz Singer, so they put in a synchronized soundtrack.
So those bubble sounds are in the original film. whenever the champagne.
I believe so, yes, and sort of the gunshots and everything like that. So they haven't managed to get the recording of the voice to sync up, but the sound.
Yeah.
The
So
soundtrack
it's
is.
a bit like what Charlie Chaplin did with the Gold Rush. You know, he kind of started to obviously do like it's like 1.5. You know, not quite silent, not quite sound yet. It's kind of halfway between.
I mean, hilariously enough,
step on that road.
This year, Charlie Chaplin for The Circus got nominated twice for Best Directing Comedy Picture and Best Writing Original Story. Didn't win either of them.
I feel like back then they would only have sound editing then.
Yeah, but there was no sound editing. The nearest you get is engineering effects.
No design or mix.
Yeah, because obviously design isn't the thing. Sound design doesn't come in until much later because Walter Murch came up with that specific phrase of sound design. But yeah, engineering effects, Wings won and Roy Pomeroy kind of got it. And then it's just no specific film, Ralph Hammeras, no specific film, and I just love this name, Nugent Slaughter. And he does, hilariously enough, he did the special effects and the sound mixing for The Jazz Singer. But that didn't win, but Wings did. Hilariously enough, Wings did not get anything in the directing category. It didn't get nominated the actor or actress or writing of any kind. And there's a thing that sort of like it's sort of like the 56th Academy Awards or something like that. They finally gave a Academy Award to Charles Rogers, Buddy Rogers, who played Jack in it, who was like 82 at the time. And they finally went, you know what? It was so weird back then. You were in the first one. Let's give you an honorary one. It's like, finally, yeah. And apparently somebody, when he was going on, told him to say that he got it through Wings and a Prayer and forgot the line when he went on, so he didn't give the line. But yeah, so the making of Wings is really weird and interesting. Like most films like this, hell behind the scenes. So although kind of the US government was sort of, if not kind of giving specific money for it, they were going, have our kind of, you know, army personnel that you need, have our aircraft, stuff like that. There were times when they were kind of going to shoot sort of the flying in the sky sequences, but they knew that essentially if you've got a clear sky with no clouds, it just looks like the planes are on strings. So you need the clouds in order to get that sense of movement. And they're just like days stretches because they were filming in Texas, but there's no clouds in the sky. So all the finances are just like, we're just pouring money in to have a load of people on the ground, not doing anything. For some reason, I think something comes up in The Aviator as well. Similarly, the Martin Scorsese movie that we did about a year and a half ago, something like that. Because obviously he does Hell's Angels the year after. And it's hard to think that, you know, some of the inspiration isn't from a massive aerial combat movie winning these awards and being incredibly popular at the time. Let's, you know, riff off it. And he was an aviator himself. There's a story related. So I found an article from like 19. I can't find exactly when it was. In Air Power History, spring 1991. This is from a Colonel Barney Oldfield, U.S. Air Force retired, who apparently, in the thing at the bottom, the little bio, apparently saw Wings 48 times during its 1928 run. And obviously he went into the Air Force, so obviously part of it was inspired, and was saying that a lot of people kind of, you know, were very much inspired to go into the Air Force from seeing this and all the flight sequences. But he said that there was a moment when they were kind of getting ready to do these big battle sequences, and in order to kind of get friendly with the local people, he'd kind of invited the mayor and the mayor's daughter along to kind of get some goodwill. They're shooting in the vicinity and stuff like that, and the mayor's daughter is up kind of in the directing tower and spots one of her friends in the crowd of like the soldiers and calls out Mildred, and the person doesn't hear them, so takes the director's like flag and megaphone, starts calling to Mildred. The soldiers go, oh, that's the director's flag, we obviously need to move, start marching, Finish it. There's no cameras rolling. All the fireworks went off because they're like, "Oh, we're going." The director's like, "No, we haven't started yet," because all the signals went off because this little girl just got it going. So there's just money pouring out of everywhere when making this.
Did people think a friend's name was the same as like action? Did they have code words?
Well, according to this article, it's Mildred didn't know where the voice was coming from, so the mayor's daughter grabbed the director's signal flag and waved it and started calling below. The troops spread out below, began the attack. The explosives went off, and not a camera turned. So I'm guessing if you're that far away, they used to have like a flag to wave instead.
Yeah. And on that scale, you probably couldn't hear anything distinct. You probably just hear someone shouting something, and you'll see the flag. So you think, well, it's time to go.
Yeah, I mean, that's similar. I can't remember what film it was. There's an anecdote. They were shooting some big battle sequence, probably for something like Ben-Hur or something like that.
Babylon?
It'll be a DeMille film, I'm sure.
I think I've said it before, where it kind of there's 3 cameras, and the importance of kind of making sure everyone's getting ready to go. Because they kind of get going. The first camera's like, what happened? The exposure's all wrong. The second camera, it wasn't, just got the wrong angle. And he goes, well, surely the third camera caught it. Third camera, what have you got? And he goes, ready to go when you are, sir. So, it's just one of these where everything kind of half goes wrong behind the scenes. Hilariously enough, again, in this article, something I discovered, where is it? So there was somebody that was working on the set. So Buddy said that an Air Corps lieutenant was assigned to look after him and also did some of the stunt planing and stuff like that. And I'll read from this article very quickly. He met the train, Buddy says. He carried my bags at my beck and call, always in the wings flying sequences. He did the flying, lying out of sight on the camera on the ground. What a wonderful guy that lieutenant was. Imagine having to lie in this cockpit and do all the flying. And he must have been a very good guy, because later he ran the Tactical Air Forces, which Strafford and interdicted ahead of the field armies to bring the Axis to its knees in World War II and in Europe. Became the first, and actually I've looked up second, technically, head of the CIA, and later Chief of Staff of the U.S. Air Force. This is General Hoyt S. Vandenberg, who was a stunt planeman, like one of the heads of the CIA and like leading up the Air Force, was literally on the ground doing half the stunt piloting in this first film. It's so weird, just the stuff that went on. It's like, you imagine the health and safety behind this. Because obviously rear view projection wasn't a thing yet. So they had to do it for real. Like, how are you getting all this stuff, like the director up there? And I think a lot of the stuff on the ground, I mean, Jacob, you were saying before that it's kind of a bit silly in the boot camp and stuff like that.
They have a giant boxing match. Like, it's ridiculous.
Hilariously enough, this is obviously the same year. I think it's the same year that The Ring comes out with Hitchcock, which is obviously a boxing movie as well. So I just think about that for early boxing movies. Imagine, like, I mean, the boot camp stuff, and the stuff on the ground, especially in that first act, kind of, it's just there to set up plot. When you get into the action sequences, this is 1927. Like, they're filming it in 26. Like, this is 30 years after they got film going. I mean, I will say, like, even on the ground...
Same amount of time for planes, too.
Yeah, like, it's less time for planes. When does the Wright brothers, like, the mid-1900s? Like,
yeah, early mid.
07, something like that? I want to say 1909, but I feel like it's before then. Because there was an old joke that in 1909 the first transatlantic flight was made from France to England the day after work on the first anti-aircraft gun began. I'm not sure how that is, but yeah, so it's not that long. And the stuff on the ground is kind of dull. You kind of get with it. There is some camera movements, which I forgot how much there actually was, which, considering this has been around for, like, I mean, you could move a camera, but you had to kind of strap it to something massive. So in terms of, like, just pans and stuff like that, that is very few and far between. This, out of the 3 that were nominated for Best Picture, probably has the most. And it's not that much, but on the ground, it's still bulky technology. To do it is impressive. Yeah. But then you get to the battle sequences.
It looks like the Wright brothers' fights were 1909. So there you go.
There you go. Okay.
I thought it was earlier.
I was going to say, I got 1909 in my head for some reason. I'm like, it must have been before that, like 1907, something like that.
Yeah.
When you get to the battle sequences, I mean, especially just the aerial combat stuff, I remember watching it for the first time going, how do they actually get this? This is 1927. What is going on? It's like they got these massive things strapped into the side of old planes and just went up and shot.
Okay, my guess was going to be that a lot of it was done like George Lucas style, but they did actually go up in the air?
I'm going to assume so. I mean, I'm guessing some stuff was models, but, you know, smaller bits.
Because there's shots where, like, they're just sitting right in front of the camera that I assumed were on the ground, and then maybe, like, in post they added, you know, strings go woo or whatever.
I mean, they might have done a little bit of that, but the fact that we've got these anecdotes of, like, the US Air Force giving them all these planes and having to wait for kind of the skies to be right implies that at least quite a lot of it, kind of your outside shots, were done for real.
Yeah. I think anything with like the planes twirling between the sky and chasing each other, that was done for real as far as I can tell.
Yeah, and so I'm guessing rear view projection wasn't massively a thing. I think Murnau's experimenting with like early prototypes of that in Sunrise at the same time. So I think it'll be another sort of decade or so until they properly got that down.
Well, you can make like composite images like with the physical film though.
I was going to say you can do some trickery and stuff, but it looked as decent as you're going to get without doing the trickery, and it's genuinely amazing. Like, it's really good. There's some stuff I remember. Let me see if I can re-find it. There's a moment sort of when you get these battle scenes for the first time, and you see them kind of, you know, on the ground and the troops going out. And there's a shot with like a load of troops marching across a field, and they've superimposed some other like footage, like tanks rolling across in the sky as well. Very non kind of naturalistic, very not surrealist, but kind of playing around with that kind of thing. And it's like just little bits like that where you go, okay, it was limited, but they're trying stuff. They're experimenting.
I mean, I would say like all this kind of spectacular, technologically groundbreaking kind of filmmaking would be for naught if you didn't care about like the characters. And I think that's where those early scenes in the camp and developing those relationships really pay off. I think, because you've been with them from the start, you know kind of what their dynamic is and their hopes and their dreams and their rivalry and everything like that.
I skimmed through an essay in a book. The book is called War and Remembrance, Recollecting and Representing War. It's an essay by, I'm going to butcher the name, Rafael Costa de Beauregard, called Wings and Broken Lullaby. It's from 1932, the psychological drama of memory and modern pacifist narrative, and mentions the fact that you have to have the scene early on with, let's mention Gary Cooper, who turns up for like 2 minutes in one of his earlier film roles as Jack. No, it's not Jack, is it? It's whoever it is, White, I think his name is. Early on, their bunkmate, and he's like, I'm here. I'm not here for the sentimental things. I've got to go, guys. See you around, sort of thing. Gets in a plane and it crashes that day.
The last thing he says is because they talk about like talismans, like lucky charms and stuff. Says, I've never bothered with that. If you're up there and it's your time, then it's your time. They walks out and promptly dies.
Yeah, and apparently, when this came out, sort of most of the fan mail and stuff was for Gary Cooper in about 3 minutes. Like women fainting with the sight of him. It's like, this is how he's going to be a star for the next like couple of decades. When you're in it for about 2 minutes and most of the fan mail goes to him. This is where we're going. But yeah, the early stuff is important, and she actually says that kind of without this, a lot of it would not have any kind of heft, even if you don't think it has as much heft as it would do now. You have to have this to show that there are kind of consequences to the war, which is then why when you have later with Jack getting drunk most of the time, this is more poignant because he's trying to forget all the trauma. And with the battle scenes, it's exciting, but you wouldn't have had like the heft to go with it without that. And should we get onto the dolly shot? We've got to discuss the dolly shot. The one shot that people actually know this movie for, and I think it's probably now known as like the wing shot. Where it kind of cuts to Paris, and there's a load of tables set up, and the camera kind of glides between sort of like 6 or 7 different conversations that people are having, apparently kind of its own free will, going through tables, and eventually ends up with Jack kind of drinking his champagne and martinis, and having these kind of animated bubbles, which must have been animated, like hand painted, like frame by frame as well.
Painted on,
Yeah, I don't know if they could do any other kind of trickery, but yeah, it
some
must
of them
be.
come out of a bedpost, so
Yeah, but it's like welcome. I wonder if they got Disney involved for that, putting it on, because it looks actually very good animation, for 1927, going on directly onto film rather than like a multiplane sort of thing like that. And this one shot was done essentially by getting a railing going along the top, hanging the camera down, and having it hang underneath the track rather than above the track in order to get through. And as we all know, it's so famous that Rian Johnson did his own version in the middle of Last Jedi, where they go to the casino planet. And I was sat there in the cinema watching it, going, I was doing the DiCaprio meme. Oh, that's the thing. That's the thing. It will have been used in other things as well, but I think kind of that's the main one that people will know it from. When you watch them side by side and you go, yeah, there we go, that's it.
I guess any kind of like tracking shot, I mean, you could really sort of trace it back to that in popular, understanding at least. I'm sure somebody was doing tracking shots, secretly or something. Not as popular.
Well, I think there's a difference because in the years before that, because I mean, even in stuff like Buñuel movie, what's Un Chien Andalou, you do have a couple of shots where it's like strapped to a bicycle and things like that. The thing was, in the early days, you essentially had to strap your cameras to something else that moved like a vehicle. So early Georges Méliès movies, he would literally take a camera, shove it on top of a train, and film the movement on top of the train. And this is sort of like 1898, 1899 sort of thing. So the idea of the moving camera had been around since then, but the kind of unchained free moving camera had been around for like 1 or 2 years before then. And I think even in the Jekyll and Hyde films that we did a couple of months ago, I apologize if I drop out. My bandwidth is apparently low. But even there, you'd got the odd pan, but not much else. This is really kind of when you start actually moving the camera around.
Yeah, and it really takes off in Hollywood when Karl Freund comes over from Germany and starts working in Hollywood. That's when the big changes start happening in terms of camera that makes things look less stagey and kind of full on like a theatre production. It's still a few years away from that being commonplace.
I mean, you look at something when you get to Universal like Dracula, where it's sort of. And that's another thing as well, and we'll discuss this with Journey's End, that with the microphones, a lot of the time it's not hanging down from the ceiling, it's kind of hidden behind plants and stuff. So you've got to stay fairly stagey in order to pick up the dialogue.
Which is why it's one of the best scenes in Singing in the Rain, when they're experimenting with sound, and the leader Maida keeps turning her head away from the mics, or covering them, when she's moving around the set.
So a lot of the kind of the moving camera stuff and the kind of more experimental stuff is. Well, it's quite funny that they kind of, because they shot the Spanish version at the same time, you see them kind of very stagey in one, and then the Spanish crew comes in at night, and they get far more experimental. But and
they do some proper filmmaking.
But even you do get a couple of kind of tracking bits, like going through the graves and stuff like that in Dracula. But then Karl Freund really comes in and sort of, does he do the Frankenstein cinematography, or is he just kind of associated? He's around at the time.
So he filmed Dracula and then he directed The Mummy.
But because when I think of that,
he's primarily known as a cinematographer, because I think he only directed 2 or 3 things himself.
Because there's an amazing shot in Frankenstein where they're bringing the body up to the lightning strike and then they bring it back down again, and both of them, they kind of have the camera on almost like a reverse kind of pulley that does it at the same time, so you get that double movement, which is gorgeous. But Wings is an interesting film. There are some bits that I really do like, some bits that don't hold up as well and do get a bit, okay, let's get on with it. But again, just like if nothing else, the stories of this being the first one to win at the Oscars. I will say, out of the 3 that got nominated, it is the best. Seventh Heaven is actually quite good as well, but Wings is the best out of all of them. Sorry, Mark, who I know is a big fan of The Racket.
I wonder if there was some nerd in 1928 or whatever who was like, oh, they need to widen this. We need to have 5 different ones because they left off Charlie Chaplin.
They left off Sunrise. It's more the other thing, and they gave it to Best Unique and Artistic Picture. I don't know if
why don't they just make it one category.
I don't know if like Outstanding Picture was like the popular vote, and Unique and Artistic one is one for the cinephiles. You know, when they're now trying to put in like Black Panther and Avengers into Best Film because they're like, oh, people are complaining. Maybe they should redo that. Maybe they should have Best Popular Film and Best Artistic Film.
Kieran, they either did or have been pushed. I can't remember now which one, but yeah, no, it's dumb. It should just be movies that are good. It doesn't need to be movies that are blockbusters.
Yes, but then you
and
have
make
to
a lot
try
of
and
money.
convince. Then you have to try and convince people that the movie is good when it's like didn't like lose 50 million at the box office, but get a rating of 98% from the critics.
Just give the stunt crews their Oscar category and leave it at that for now.
They are
And
doing
animals.
it for next year, aren't they? I think.
Yeah.
And isn't it going to be great that anyone that votes has to have seen all the films in that category? The first time, like, since 1926, realistically, because they didn't do a 27 that all had to. Maybe that's why Sunrise didn't get it for this one, because only like 5 people had seen it, so they gave it for this one instead, but not enough people had seen it to put it in for the outside. I don't know. Out of Wings and Sunrise should have got Outside Picture, but it got its other sister Oscar. So
I'd like to just give a few props to Clara Bow.
Yes,
she's really good. She's like the highlight of the performances in this, and it's just so good that she just she gets the 2 guys are doing, like, in theory, do most of that dramatic heavy lifting, but she's sort of doing it in like a few subtle more ways. She kind of starts as like the comic relief and she's a very gifted like physical comedian, but she also has this kind of subtle kind of evoking like the heartache, and not being noticed and everything like that, and going through like a bit of a transformation halfway through again to try and be noticed. To little effects, because he's so sozzled he can't remember who he spent the night with. But she's really good. I think she's a highlight of this.
Yeah,
Definitely.
aside from Gary Cooper, obviously, for 3 minutes.
All right. Is that it for Wings?
I think that's it for Wings. I'd say go check it out because it is, as much as the kind of first 30 minutes, it's a very enjoyable film and a very influential and kind of historic film, if for no other reason than in the history books, it will always be it won the first Oscar. So, it has that, if nothing else.
Well, do we know what won the first Oscar? Which category went first?
I don't know which category went first and therefore given out.
Well, because they weren't kind of televised, were they? It was like very much an in-house event, wasn't it? The first few, so
We're going alphabetically.
I mean, they might have just handed out placards with the winners to the people at their dinner, for all we know.
Yeah, and also this is the only time that you. I'm just seeing here on Wiki, which is where we get all our information from, because it's obviously correct. 3 categories were eliminated.
It's more accurate than most sources these days.
It's more accurate than AI. As somebody pointed out, because everyone, like all the autistic people, changing everything that's very slightly incorrect has to be perfect.
We click and check what the source is. We hover over the 2.
Yeah. If it's got a source, I'll go, okay, there's probably something from that. But 3 categories were eliminated from subsequent presentation, which is Best Engineering Effects, Best Title Writing, and Best Unique and Artistic Quality of Production, which isn't a category. I'm guessing that's the artistic picture. But yeah, so one of the categories that Wings won for, which is Engineering Effects, doesn't exist now. So the only time a specific Oscar was won in that category, Wings won it. So if nothing else, some of
Do
those
you
things.
think that? Do you think that was just for the tracking shot? You know, I think it's like the engineering involved in that one shot.
It's that, and I think kind of a lot of the
Dogfighting.
the sound mixing and stuff,
Yeah.
and just all the stuff that went into it.
Yeah.
I did see that they
Yeah.
gave honorary awards, and one of them was to Warner Brothers as a production company for The Jazz Singer. Even though that didn't get nominated for anything, they gave it to Warner Brothers for coming up with
Best
the system
blackface.
that enabled them to do that. But obviously, going into next year, now everyone's trying to start converting over to, to sound, and you get outstanding picture, best director, best actor, best actress, best writing, best art direction, and best cinematography. So there are only actually 7 categories that year. But yeah, so
Yeah.
cool.
All right.
We should do an episode where we find a random Oscar category and watch those movies.
Yeah.
And I will say
Yeah,
very quickly,
random short-lived Oscar category, so we don't have to watch too many.
I'll say once again, if somebody wants to get all the Oscars in history thrown their way, you just have to write and make a biopic of the first Oscars. That's it. Make it an hour 40, hour 50, get a couple of A-listers in.
Yeah.
Everything's there.
And if you do it for 2 years' time, then you can tie it into the anniversary. That'd be great.
Exactly. That's all you need to do. I will be pitching it.
It's crazy also that there was Best Director Comedy, Best Director Drama, and they still didn't have room for a woman to win.
I was going to say, it's almost like, is it the Golden Globes or the Emmys that splits it up, like musical or comedy and then serious picture?
Yeah.
So you get weird things like trying to put it into like musical or comedy because they think that's an easier category. Occasionally stuff like
or the film's clearly a drama, but it's in the comedy category because it's got a joke in it.
Yeah, and therefore it's likely to win for some reason.
They should have a committee of like just real pedantic people who debate which category it goes into. You know, really make it objective.
It's called the internet.
Yeah. So 3 years later, we have one of the first American-British co-productions. I think it might have been the first of the sound era. I'm not quite verify that, but it's definitely one of the first overall. So James Whale's Journey's End, based on R.C. Sheriff's hugely successful stage play. Sheriff would go on to adapt The Invisible Man again for James Whale a few years after this, and Odd Man Out for Carol Reed, 15 years later. So it's got quite successful stage rise for stage, and then later for screen.
This movie makes so much more sense knowing it's based on a play.
Did you not get that?
Yeah. Yeah, it couldn't be more like a play, could it?
I thought maybe like it was a really low budget production or something. No. I wasn't sure.
No, I mean
they blew their load on sound design.
The main problem with this, I would say, overall, I think it's a really good film. The main problem with it is, unlike Wings and even the war film James Whale will do after this, which is Waterloo Bridge, it's not been well cared for over a century, so it looks like it's been kept in a wet trench for.
The movie has trench foot.
Yeah, it really does. It's actually the only print out there. It's just been reprinted, and degraded over time. It's terrible.
The sound wasn't bad, but the picture quality was terrible.
Yeah. That's one caveat for this. It's a good film, but you may not have the best time watching it. It's just so degraded. So we follow. It's basically the story of 4 days in the life of World War I British officers in their dugout, particularly focused on the alcoholic Captain Stanhope, played by Colin Clive in his screen debut, and how his life is basically upturned by the arrival of Lieutenant Raleigh, who's the brother of his girlfriend back home, and he's basically terrified that he's going to send back to England just. What state he's in, basically, and how he's not going to be a suitable husband for her because he's a raging alcoholic with various mental health problems. It opens up with some really nice overlapping kind of naturalistic dialogue of as the troops kind of move through like a bombed out city basically, and they're just basically just chatting and gossiping and telling jokes and stuff, which I quite like. I think it definitely gets across that kind of that sense of humor you've got to have really to be a soldier and stay sane this time. And just kind of dark jokes to tell to each other, and the idea that like the enemy is like 100 yards away, sitting in exactly the same sorts of trenches as you are, and basically day after day of just patrols just been bored, watching poking head out over no man's land, just check no one's coming, and then occasionally like a shell will go off, or someone will try and get through barbed wire. And it's things like very small changes to your really crappy kind of food, rations is like quite a big deal. So like the officers have their in-house cook, who's constantly bringing them cups of coffee, cups of tea that taste like onions because he made onion soup the day before. He's promised tin pineapple, but he gets tin peaches instead, which is a disaster.
That is rough.
The round
War
of
is
pepper
hell.
at one point. Yeah. They ask him what the soup is that night. He says, "Oh, it's yellow soup, sir. It's got a very deep yellow flavor."
This is like when the king in Cambodia didn't have enough bananas for his bananas Foster.
Yeah. And there's lines about like it's like the treats is like when the rare occasion when they have a bit of bacon for breakfast, and it's like one rasher of bacon just cut real small, split between them. And one of the officers comments about how the smell of bacon is a great start to the day. And the cook says, "Oh, I reckon there's enough smell of bacon here to last for dinner, sir."
A non-zero number of people working on this film had to have been in this war.
Yeah,
I would say so.
I mean, it's well within living memory of the war, obviously. The play I believe is inspired by several real experiences and accounts, and obviously just they made a kind of together a loose story out of that. I mean, it's very much like slice of life, fly on the wall. Basically, it's like not. There's a couple of like big events in it, but essentially it's a long time just in this one room in this dugout, basically, and people coming and going, going on patrols and carrying messages to each other and grabbing a few hours kip here and there, having their meals, talking about life and trying to not register kind of how horrible their existence is at that point.
I think realistically, it is possibly one of the most British films ever that applies today because it's low budget. The money that is there is funded by Americans. It's technically historical and it's mostly talking about very mundane things around the kitchen sink.
It very
say
every
British
English
accents.
genre put together.
I would say like the two sort of battle scenes we get probably look quite good if the film hadn't degraded so much and I can hardly see it. I mean, Smoked there's a lot of effort, to kind of make things look a bit better, kind of make your budget go further. But they do work. They're very kind of visceral and intense. And remind me a bit of All Quiet on the Western Front, kind of made the year after this. Kind of did this on a bigger scale, a bigger budget. Essentially, that's like proof of what you can do with this kind of story, but a slightly larger canvas and more bang for your buck, essentially. Yeah. Apparently, there was a German remake of this released the year after this.
Are they still British?
Yes, they are amazingly. So it's a German language film with German actors speaking German, but it's the British side of the story. Conrad Weiss is the Stanhope character.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Apparently, it only got about a year's worth of playtime because it was banned as soon as Hitler came to power, basically. And later on, there'd be several other versions of this. And there's been a TV adaptation. There was another film version about 6 or 7 years ago, I think, with Sam Claflin and our friend of the podcast, Asa Butterfield. Which I haven't seen. Yeah, which I haven't seen, but I think it's meant to be pretty good. Apparently, Toby Jones plays the cook character, which you can definitely see him doing, I think.
Toby Jones is back. Everything just crops up.
Yeah,
He was a Baby Driver last week. We didn't mention that.
No, it wasn't. That was Paul Williams.
Oh, was it really? Oh,
yes, it was. Yeah,
it was a short, weird-looking guy, so it confused me.
Another short, weird-looking guy with a funny voice.
We'll put him in it too.
I swear, for Toby Jones to be something, it's like his entire role can't be longer than like, oh, you only got like 15 minutes of screen time max. I'll take it, because he's always in minor roles. Like, he's never like the main character, you know?
Yeah. So you got the classic kind of in this for the characters. So they're all the office, the average British Tommy. They've got a certain amount of luxuries. They get regular food and coffee and tea brought to them and everything like that. They're not kind of got the abject terror of just being on, out in the open at all times. But it all represents kind of different kind of archetypes, I suppose. So Stanhope, he's running from something really, and he's got a certain amount of security in what he does, but he's just basically just buries himself in the bottle, just to avoid thinking about kind of everything wrong with him and the world around him. You got Raleigh, who's like the young idealistic kind of innocent to an extent, but he quickly gets a wake up call for his experiences. The other character who's known as Uncle, because he's the oldest of the group, who's like the old, reliable, kind of wise one. He's always got words of wisdom. And then you've got the other guy, the bigger guy, who's Trotter. That's a very creative name for a guy who's slightly portly. Who's basically his main kind of defining characteristics are he's relentlessly cheerful and quite obsessed with food. He makes the most of like their meager meal times. He kind of devours it all like having a banquet every night. And they all kind of serve kind of their role in the pot. They're kind of it's about kind of these different classes and experiences kind of at loggerheads of each other. Different approaches to commanding men in like abject situations. Basically, another younger officer at one point who's very clearly wants to get out of there. Might be dealing with shell shock essentially. He's trying to find a way to get out of there, get to other field hospitals, but Stanhope is basically threatening him, saying you'll be shot as a deserter, and basically saying it's like, I can't get out of here, so you're not going to get out of here either. There's I think for me the most affecting scene. I mean, I say it's very stagey. It's very obviously stage play. It's such just you're in one location for the whole thing, people coming and going and saying their bit and then going off screen, come back in later. But build up to the kind of the commander of their kind of group, comes in at one point and says, comes in launching an offensive tomorrow. We want you to, get over to the German trench over there and bring back a prisoner to interrogate them about what their plans are. And he picks, he picks Uncle and Raleigh, to lead a small group of men to do this. And basically, it's a scene of all the other characters have left the room at this point. It's just Raleigh and I keep calling him Uncle because it's Osborne, isn't it? But everyone calls him Uncle. Yeah, so it's just Raleigh and Osborne just sitting there, trying not to look like they're absolutely bricking it about what they're about to have to do. Just talking about everything, but making very concentrating on smoke, on having a final smoke and cup of coffee before going over the top. They're just trying to put a brave face on it and just talk about everything, but saying, oh, you should come visit me when we're back in England. Because talk about like that they know like the same part of the country. We'll go out on a walk. I'll show you some places in New Forest that you've never seen before. And this was the bit that reminded me most of Blackadder. So obviously Kieran knows this, but for in case Jacob doesn't, Blackadder, Rowan Atkinson's sitcom from the 80s. Each series was like a sitcom in a different period of history, basically. And the final series, Blackadder Goes Forth, was set during World War I, and it was like 5 episodes of basically following these soldiers in the trenches, going through their hijinks, very quite light-hearted and silly. And then it comes to the final episode when they go over the top, and just the turn, just the tonal change gives you absolute whiplash.
Yeah.
It's just right to the point where they're about to go over the top, and you think, oh, they've got to get out of this. And they keep talking, saying, oh, maybe we can think of something. We can call. There's a nasty sponge of wood on that ladder. Maybe you can fall and hurt yourself and get called back. And you think they're going to escape right at the last moment, and then they don't, and they all die. Yeah, literally. The final thing is Ron Atkinson's backheader going, good luck, everyone, blows his whistle, and they charge, and they're all shot to bits. It's just, and the shot fades out to a field of poppies. It's one of the most harrowing, perfect endings to like a TV series in history.
They were initially contemplating trying to find a way out of it, but they didn't think it would be respectful. In that way, they thought making it a comedic light of going over the top and into death and finding some way out of it would be completely going against the entire point of
and just this idea that this is the last kind of conflict, basically, where the officers, the leaders of companies, still led from the front. They weren't expected to be out there. There are all these things about like the field marshal stuff, being 5 miles behind you, giving orders, you send all these young men to their deaths. But if you're an officer with your platoon, with your battalion, you're still in amongst it, and you're led from the front. I mean, literally, just expect to charge out into no man's land, holding a stick and a pistol. Just.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a line in Blackadder where I think Blackadder says to Percy, to Hugh Laurie's character, like, don't forget your stick, Lieutenant. And he goes, oh, thank you, sir. I wouldn't want to be caught fighting Jerry's without this.
Wouldn't want to face a machine gun without this, I think, is the line.
That was it. Yeah.
Just a stick of wood,
Yeah. But it's just those little moments of like humanity and just these men being extremely vulnerable without trying to show they're being vulnerable. It's like putting on a lot of front, and obviously that's what Stanhope's doing. Just the drink and lashing out at people. It's all he's got, basically. And there's where I like how they kept this ambiguous. By the way, there's a moment where Riley's going to send a letter out to his sister. Stanhope's girl back home. And he insists on reviewing it. He says, "Well, I'm the officer in charge. I've got a sense of this. Really, just wants to check that he's not being reported back on. He's not telling him, what state he's in." And Riley kind of storms off and goes, "Fine, I won't send it." And then Stanhope gets Osborne to read it to him, and basically just says, it's like. General stuff about his time here, and then this bit about you, and he reads a load of nice stuff about what a great man he is. And I like how it's kept quite ambiguous about whether that's actually what the letter is saying, or whether it's Osborne putting on a front for it. I think it's probably implied that he's trying to spare Stanhope's feelings a bit, but I like how they don't kind of go strong either way about that. So James Whale obviously he was a successful theatre director at this point. He'd directed Colin Clive in some productions, and Colin Clive had played this role on stage as well, but not for James Whale. And they both ended up going to Hollywood together, essentially, in the next couple of years after this. I'd say that Colin Clive had a bit of a tough life, and I think a lot of this, his real life experiences, kind of fed into his performance here. So he went to Sandhurst. He was going to be admit the military was going to be his career, but he was thrown by a horse in the early days of his training, and got both his legs crushed under the horse horrifically. So the horse threw him, and then kind of fell back on top of him. He never quite recovered from that. I think he always walked with a limp after that, and it's kind of theorized by his friends and family that's basically self-medicated after that, really, and just got lost in the bottle. And he was a very severe alcoholic, to the extent that I think on Frankenstein, sometimes he was so inebriated he couldn't stand for his over-the-shoulder shots. So 2 members of crew tried to hold him up, to get him in line with the camera, and while they shot over his shoulder.
Jeez.
And a lot of his friends and family kind of said, it was basically dominated his life, and died from complications from alcohol. I think only when he was in his mid-30s, I believe. and I'm sure a lot of that kind of sort of obviously didn't see any actual battle, but kind of the idea that he could have gone to war, it could have been his career, and that he kind of he lost out on proving himself to that extent, and then went into acting, but was basically drowning his sorrows. I think a lot of that you could say probably informed the forms here, and probably is why it's so kind of so immediate, kind of believable. I think I do think he's absolutely mesmerizing this and heartbreaking, and just
He is the reason to watch it.
real. Yeah, I mean, all the main cast are good, but yeah, he's just incredible in this, I think.
If I can very quickly, a couple of weeks ago, I found a book, A Critical History of British Cinema by Roy Arms from 1978. And in it, there's a sort of a page or so on Journey's End. And in it, they say that he puts down that the dominant drive behind the film was to remain totally faithful to the play, which is held in uncritical esteem by all concerned in production. For this reason, veteran George Pearson was sent to Hollywood to ensure an all-British cast and a screenplay which was as literal a transcription as possible of Sheriff's work. Inevitably, the only person thought capable of playing the lead was Colin Clive, whose stage appearance as Colonel Stanhope had been a personal triumph. Then goes on to kind of go, it's not that interesting a film.
I don't disagree.
He goes, the film is in fact less about war. Well, actually goes, the bulk of the film is so close a version of the play that even the discreetly used exteriors become distracting, and that they point to the existence of a hideous and chaotic world of bitter trench warfare, far more absorbing than the closed personal universe of the central characters. The film is less about war than about the code of the public school educated officer, about doing the right thing. About doing the right thing, about being a good chap, about never shirking, complaining or protesting, about being sent to one's death, keeping that appearance in front of the men, which one does not, of course, but socially, even under the stress of battle.
I mean, you Jake, you talk about like the accents and this and everything like that, and it's the idea in all like war films that like all British soldiers sound like this, and essentially it depends. I suppose depends what class you're for. Yeah, the officers would have been from the upper classes, because they'd have had money to be sent to officer school essentially. Get commission,
pay for a better rank.
Also,
maybe that was done by now.
Comes from a lot of the actors, obviously, to play soldiers in British war films come from theatre as well, where they're taught to speak properly, receive pronunciation.
Again, when Blackmail came out, back then. When Blackmail came out, they were all very posh, speaking like this, very kind of upper class accents, and a lot of
Sam, evaluate that accent for me real quick.
That went off the rails very, very quickly. I wasn't sure where I was going with it. But a lot of the publicity for Blackmail was like, oh, isn't it nice to hear a proper British accent on screen? Very posh upper class. So there's part of that still in this, because that was the year before.
Yeah. Because I'm sure if they just went out the door into the trenches and hung out with the Tommies, there'd be all kinds of regional accents there,
Yeah.
By Jove, this man has no chocolate.
I mean, Mason, the cook, he's got a working class accent, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Because he's very much from a different world than the rest of these guys.
But you couldn't imagine somebody from like Stanford in Hot Fuzz, like being one of the officers, could you? Like nobody's talking. Colin Clive ain't talking like this as one of the main characters. Staring into a pit of despair. It's just not happening.
Yeah, I mean, you can play a very dangerous drinking game. Take a drink every time someone says "righto."
It's just
righto.
It may be, what you're saying is correct about class and how accent kind of plays into that. But I also think it feels unnaturalistic to me, just as a viewer. Well, these guys are sitting around and just speaking so very properly and enunciating, and I'm sure part of that's the theater of it too.
I think part of it is the theatre, and part of it is the fact that the Brits had only had sound for, again, Blackmail was the year previously,
so which barely has any sound.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's two versions of it, isn't there? There's a silent version, and he'd filmed it in such a way so that he could essentially refilm a load of it in sound and make it easier to convert halfway through because he knew it was coming. And a lot of films around this time were doing similar versions. But if you've only got that the year before, and the whole thing is, oh look, we're having British accents on screen, you know, and the proper thing you want as a production studio, you'd want the kind of stereotypical posh accents coming through because this is Britishness. So I think a lot of the accents is that, and there's obviously a class division. I think we were talking about this last week with Last Night in Soho. But there is, I think, definitely the fact that this is the early things of sound for Britain, and therefore let's get our proper posh British accents on screen as quickly as we can.
So I promised a Howard Hughes connection to this film. So apparently, with production delayed while Hughes tinkered with the flying scenes in Hell's Angels, Whale managed to shoot his film adaptation of Journey's End and have it come out a month before Hell's Angels was released. Now, he did some uncredited work on Hell's Angels himself. He basically did the dialogue scenes for Hughes, by the sounds of it. And the gap between completion of the dialogue scenes and completion of the aerial combat stunts, because it was so dragged out, allowed Whale to be paid, sail back to England, and begin work on subsequent projects before sailing back to Hollywood and finishing Journey's End. So basically, he made his own credited cinema debut, and his and then his actual film debut kind of came out within kind of weeks of each other. But just the idea that you can kind of sail between the US and the UK, make a whole other film in the time it takes, for Howard Hughes to be happy with like how his planes looks on his film, basically. So before I went to Hollywood, he did one more war film, James Whale, which was Waterloo Bridge, released the following year. I've also watched that this week. It's a very different film. It's more like it was a romance essentially, like a kind of two classes meeting, I suppose. Like mismatched couple. There is a meet cute in it in a 1931 film. But basically, it's a Canadian soldier falling for an American dancer / sex worker in London, and he doesn't know what she does with her nights. Basically, and he falls head over heels in love with her while she's thinking, "Oh, I'm not good enough for him." We can't find out, kind of how I bring the money in, basically. But it's decent. It's and it gets that element of classic James Whale films, I think, present in all of his other features that's not present here, and that's the campness of it. There's some very over-the-top performances, usually from middle-aged women, shrieking and just camping it up. There's this great landlady character who basically just steals everything, just chews the scenery, but she's very entertaining to watch. But it's a very different kind of prospect to this. It's very kind of downbeat and stagey and kind of reliant on the performances first and foremost, whereas that kind of goes all over London and there's loads of locations, loads of characters, and essentially just comes down to a relationship during wartime, but it doesn't actually feature any actual time in the war itself. It's like what takes place while the soldiers are on leave, basically. But then following that, you go to, and that was produced by Carl Lemley, and who basically said to James Whale and Colin Clive, "Oh, come to Hollywood, we can make use of you at Universal." And they'd go over, make Frankenstein, be a massive hit, and they follow it up a few years later with Bride of Frankenstein, which was an even bigger hit. So
obviously James Whale in that time also did stuff like The Old Dark House as well,
and Invisible Man.
Well, now I'm curious what old-timey Canadian accent sounds like. We're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, eh?"
Is that the only things Canadians say? I'm sorry and eh?
"Oh, I'm sorry I had to shoot all those Germans." But I have to put the 1920s inflection.
Something maple syrup, Watch out for that moose.
"Oh, how are the St. Patrick's in Toronto, eh?"
Yeah, it doesn't sound noticeably different to a Canadian accent now, I don't think. And the American the American lead in that, so May Clark, would also be in Frankenstein. So, he kind of got together like a company of trusted thesps, basically, who would use in quite a few of his projects. So, as you do, so yeah, this is kind of with caveats. I do think it's a really good film. I think it's very, it's down to performances, it's down to the emotions, it's down to subtleties of, manly men trying to appear like manly men when they're just absolutely bricking it on the inside. And an interesting kind of slice of life aspect of, kind of how one class, of British society, dealt with the war, basically. And it's just, it's a shame it hasn't been, the print hasn't been looked after over the years. And you never know, you may find some missing elements one of these days. May be able to do some restoration, but that would require money and a lot of effort.
Hey, Scorsese.
Effort. Yeah.
You
Come on,
restore things.
Scorsese. What are you doing with yourself? Yeah. So it looks terrible now, but it's worth your time still. It's like the emotions and the performances are still there. So I think it's still worth.
Scorsese would turn around and go, "I've already restored it. It's called The Aviator. Like, I've already done that."
I did the more interesting version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a remake,
Well, even with all the innovation in Wings, I mean, you guys would agree these last two movies are pretty standard Hollywood style in terms of the way they're, and there's the animation too that we talked about with Wings. And
then Journey's End is very much a product of its time and the kind of limitations that they are in transitioning from sound and from theatre and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because not only translating from theater where everything's kind of on a couple of distinct sets. There was the sound technology that was still new. They were still learning how to use it. You had to hit your marks very precisely. Totally different industry.
There's a couple of moments in Journey's End where you've got characters kind of bending over the table, the dinner table that they've got there, and I swear most of those props are there to hide microphones. There is a moment where he's arguing with somebody and the guy kind of gets up and then leans back over. It's meant to be intense, but I'm fairly sure that's to get closer to the microphone that they've got hidden behind the prop.
And there's a few moments where you can't quite tell whether it's the crackle of old film, kind of bad reverb on the set, or an intended sound effect of like a battle outside. It's kind of like could be any of these, really.
But over the course of time, people making war films, were also interested, and not that Wings wasn't interested in the artistry of it, but I think it is more, whenever we discuss it, at least focused on the technology and how cool it is, and not so much like how does it really imbue meaning into the film, aside from like the realism of the planes and stuff like that. There, over these decades, so many war films, so many different wars, so many great war films. But one that I will forever come back to as probably the best war film is The Thin Red Line from Terrence Malick. And The Thin Red Line is particularly notable because after making Days of Heaven in 1978, Terrence Malick just kind of disappeared.
He did a Kubrick, like, full on.
He did.
Also.
Yeah, the man is already an enigma. So, like, when it comes to, our former editor-in-chief at the Film Magazine and pal Joseph Wade loves Malick. He wrote a thesis about him. I asked him, hey, what was Malick doing in that gap? And he was like, we don't know.
Fishing.
He might have been in France. Wikipedia also mentions France. So I'm going to go with is probably in France. We do know he was in contact with people involved with films because they would reach out to him about like writing screenplays or future projects. But yeah, really, we have no idea what specifically he was doing aside from if he was working, with a producer or an actor or somebody on a project or consulting or whatever. But we do know also that prior to that, He attended Harvard to study philosophy. He attended Oxford to study philosophy. He attended AFI to, study filmmaking. And so that's what Terrence Malick's background is. If you don't know who he is, he's an intellectual who went to film rather than like a filmmaker or, somebody who just like is a fan of philosophy. The dude translated an entire Heidegger book, which like I can't imagine reading Heidegger in German, much less translating it then to English. That had to have been a hell of a time. So yeah, we do have a body of work around like what does Terrence Malick think about stuff? What's he interested in philosophically beyond his film? But it is his film that has become the real grounding point for like what does he think about stuff. But then unless there's direct interview evidence, it's all based on reading too. Looking into like, so I was talking with Joe because I'm not super as far as knowledgeable about Malick as him, although I love his films. But I didn't know Tree of Life was autobiographical, so I don't know how we know it, but we do. That's one of the few things we know about the guy. But yeah, so at some point in the late 1980s, someone's like, either he pitched it to them or they said to him, we could do one of these two projects. And one of the projects was adapting the book The Thin Red Line, which was by James Jones, which I almost said James Joyce, so I'm glad I double checked. He was
It's different to James Earl Jones, right?
Yeah, likely. Might have been his dad. I don't know. So The Thin Red Line is 510 pages, and it's written based on Jones's experience at the battle that is in the film, Guadalcanal. There's like 3 different battles that took place in the Guadalcanal campaign. One of them's like Seahorse. I can't remember the names of them now. But I looked at them. Anyway, he was in, basically 3 different just brutal battles where Americans were going up a hill, or a series of hills where one of them was called like a mountain or something, in order to take Japanese positions to take over the island so that supplies could come from Australia to the Allied forces in the Pacific campaign. And I guess Malick read the book and really liked the way it focuses on like the emotional reality of the soldiers involved in it. Apparently it's a very realistic film or book. It's also very dark, and Jones wrote about a particular guy. He makes him into a character, and he makes it into the movie, who got like a Medal of Honor for some of the actions that he undertook, which were, basically killing Japanese people in order to take their position. And so Malick takes that, but he applies his very specific, poetic style and his, existential philosophy. And I don't know how much of it comes from the book. I'm assuming not a ton of it. What I'm assuming he did was take maybe things that were said in the book and then applied them to his own thoughts.
Yeah, he definitely takes his own route compared to the book, because famously Adrian Brody thought he was the lead in the film because his character is the lead in the book.
Yeah.
And then he got to the premiere and realised, I don't have any lines anymore. I'm hardly in this.
That's great.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's also the fact that apparently the original cut was like 5-6 hours long.
Okay,
and they get cuts down like 20 times.
That's it's like any assembly cut. As far as I could tell, there was never a like screened or planned to be screened version. That was just like, okay, we put everything together. Let's get to the editing room, which apparently Malick went with Sean Penn. He was like, Sean, I really need your help cutting down this film.
And about the translation, I also always think of Full Metal Jacket, where if you read the book, The Short Timers, which I had to go out and find like online and get for like 25 quid, because it's not like one that's just sold on Amazon. Where the film ends is like 110 pages into like a 180-page book. There's an entire like act at least that doesn't go on. So there's things like things that were planned for Full Metal Jacket. So is it Animal Mother, I think, has been carrying around this machete the entire time. And originally, after Private Joker kills the sniper at the end, he was meant to use this machete to cut off her head to go, look at this. And they cut that for the film because they thought at the end they want it to end on Joker going down and not have Animal Mother kind of take away from that. In the book, this happens, and then like, because you don't need that to be a big climax, because you've still got another load of stuff in the jungle and stuff like that happening. So again, you take weird liberties. Like obviously the killing of Lee Ermey is like a third of the way through. In the book, it's like 35, 37 pages through. That's all the boot camp is. It's not a massive section. So I'm guessing it's a similar kind of process of taking what you need and going your own direction with it. And
well, as far as story, for sure, because they had to truncate a series of battles into pretty much just a single one. But I mean more in terms of like the philosophical content. I don't know how much
pure Malik.
well, but also he could be taking like Private Wit says this in the book, and he starts thinking about it, and then you know just starts writing. I don't know. I would love to like just watch him in the process of making a movie. I'm sure it's fascinating. But yeah, he developed this over a decade, and there's all of the different characters. I'm sure in whatever 5-hour assembly cut got produced, everybody's got their fully fleshed out story, and then it's a question of like who's really matters.
I mean the surviving cast is impressive as it is, and there's just so many big names in this. But left on the cutting room floor with no footage left, so all these people filmed scenes that got cut out. So Bill Pullman, Gary Oldman, Lucas Haas, Viggo Mortensen, Martin Sheen, Jason Patrick, and Mickey Rourke were all left on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, I mean, and
as well as a full length Billy Bob Thornton narration track.
Wow. I hadn't seen all of those
At least
names.
it wasn't a whole like $2 million like helicopter crash in Sahara that they decided to not use.
The problem with that stuff is that becomes too big of a talking point when it comes to the film, because what we actually have on film is incredible. Like it's so good. And whenever you look this up on Reddit, like all of the top ones are, this is so boring. It's such a waste of a great cast. It's like, I'm not coming to this movie to watch Adrian Brody necessarily.
I think with any Malik film, you've got to tune yourself into the vibes, haven't you? It's very much just let it wash over you, and you get yourself engrossed in it. You might be there for the long haul, but it'll be worth it in the long run.
Yeah, and the first, I mean, it's Malik. So what are there? There's trees, there's animals. Yep.
And then there's something harrowing in between,
Yeah. He'll randomly pan away from a real expensive battle scene just to look at nature.
Yeah.
And he hasn't told the rest of his cast and crew that he's doing that.
Yeah. Or there's a B crew going around like find every animal, find every dead bird, whatever you can find. Let's find an area that has recently been like controlled burned. I really wonder how he ethically feels about the amount of explosions it took to make this movie. Because I was watching it and I was like, this is like when Coppola's making the napalm scene at the beginning. Like, how much of this jungle is he blowing up for this movie? But yeah,
the napalm scene. You mean the one that's actually used in the napalm? Not the bit that Roger Deakins found in a bin to cut together for the opening scene.
Yeah, well, I mean the opening bit where they just set off a ton of explosives and just blew up a whole area of jungle for a movie.
I mean, to be honest, with that movie, I don't think Coppola cared too much about a lot of things.
But I would expect Malik to care about those things, not Coppola. Coppola's all about let's make the movie and let's make it cool.
I think for Apocalypse Now, Coppola was a little bit insane himself.
He
made a hell of a movie, but he was just off.
And a hell of a making of the movie documentary.
Yeah, the best making of documentary I think in existence.
Yeah, the story, I guess I would need to read the book to see what it would be like with all of these different people, because there's already an expansive enough cast as it is. And, you know, even some of them only have... Jared Leto has just a short sequence, and that's it.
With
Then
Jared
he's out of
Leto's
the
in this
movie.
movie. Honestly,
and then dies horribly on screen.
Yeah, dies horribly.
So,
Well, first what he does is he smacks gum, and honestly, his gum and eye acting are superb. Like,
to be honest,
Leto
knowing Jared
nailed
Leto,
his
that's
2
not
seconds.
acting. That's just him, and they shot him.
Yeah, he must have seen something horrifying, because yeah, just through chewing gum, his demeanor completely changes. But he has to, you know, stay in soldier mode. He's really good in this movie, and it's impressive the way that Malik's able to find like just these little expressive performances that aren't even over the top throughout the course of it. But the main character, so to speak, is Jim Caviezel. He plays Private Witt, and he is the primary narrator. The film, well, first it opens on like an alligator or I don't know which one. I'm assuming an alligator.
It'll be a crocodile if it's in Asia.
Okay, crocodile then. It's very gradually slipping into murky water, and then it begins to just sink into the surface. And just that one shot, I mean, you could probably write a page about the shot and what it could mean. You know, is violence inherent to nature? Is it a metaphor for like, you know, an aggressor coming into, you know, an area and trying to, you know, there's all the shots later of the, you know, soldiers crawling in the grass in their uniforms. Like it evokes that sort of imagery. Later on, they capture and chain the crocodile in like the back of a truck or something. It's just that one crocodile. He gets so much mileage out of it. Before it then moves to Jim Caviezel has gone native. He's AWOL on some island in the Pacific. I guess maybe in the Solomon Islands or something. He's hanging out with all these kids.
Yeah. I mean that's the essential passion. It's like it's contrast. It's like he's in paradise at that point. He's literally about to go into hell.
Yeah.
So, you know, you need both for the for the full impacts.
You have that. You have the, you know, these kids. You know, a lot of the people in this war are kids themselves. They're very young men. And you know, that's one thing that Nick Nolte says to, what's his name? John. There's so many actors. John Cusack, where he's like, you know, you're just starting out here. I've been in wars or not wars, because he hasn't been in wars, but I've been in the military for so long. You'll get experience. You'll learn. Yeah, they're kids themselves. There's the paradise, the innocence, the, you know, interweaving of like man and nature, different types of people all together. And what Jim Caviezel is going to be just sort of talking to himself, to us. I don't know who he's talking to. He's talking to somebody about the oneness, the holistic nature of the world, and the way that conflict is both inherent to it, but also goes against maybe the intended way, the better way for us to live. And that's outlined with this sequence where like things are great, everybody's getting along, kids are playing little rock games, but you know, then the Americans show up and Sean Penn has to throw Jim Caviezel in the brig because he's AWOL, and this is apparently the, you know, multiple times he's gone AWOL. But despite that, Jim Caviezel, he loves his family and C Company, and he will gladly go and serve wherever they're heading, which is somewhere in the Solomon Island, Guadalcanal, to take stuff from the Japanese. And yeah, Sean Penn, he gets a bit of narration. Who else does? There's this one guy who I don't know who he is, but he has a wife, and we get a lot of flashbacks.
Yeah. So that's Ben Chaplin, the Brit in this ensemble. I mean, I think his accent's great. Yeah. He's the one who's is he the one who's married to Miranda Otto? So we keep getting flashbacks to them in the.
Yes, yeah. We get the flashbacks that remind me of Tree of Life for that. He kind of looks like Elias. I don't know how to say his name, because he looks like Stabler. Yeah, he looks like Stabler from SVU. but they look similar. So until I've really figured out which one was which, that was confusing.
Yeah.
I will say that we talk about stacked casts. You look at this and go, this is up there with one of the most stacked casts. And a lot of these hadn't been in. Some of them had been around for a while, and some of them really hadn't. I mean, Nick Nolte, Jim Caviezel. Then you get Sean Penn, Adrian Brody, John Cusack, George Clooney's in it for like 3 minutes at the end, it seems.
Yeah.
John Travolta's in it for about 3 minutes as well. Yeah.
Woody Harrelson, and this is early Woody Harrelson. John C. Reilly again, early John C. Reilly. You know, load of other people. John Savage is in there, does a very good job. Unfortunately, Leto's in there. We ignore that fact.
I mean, he's good though. So like, this isn't an unfortunately Leto. It's unfortunately Leto when he sucks.
I think Leto in the 90s into early 2000s was decent Leto, you know, acting wise at least.
Then he started a band and he did some okay stuff, and then sort of around 2008, 2009, everything got to his head, and it's just like now he turned into an unbearable arse.
Yeah, Nick Nolte gets a slight bit of narration, but mostly he gets dialogue because he.
Sorry, I tell you what, I was astounded to read that Nick Nolte wasn't nominated for an Oscar for this. He should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor. He's incredible. I love Nick Nolte in general, but just the amount of time he's actually on screen. I mean, it's kind of obviously a big ensemble like this. It's very small, but his scenes just make such impact, and he's just such a detestable kind of representation of that side of the military, that kind of gung ho, kind of victory at any cost kind of thing. You know, just for the scene of him trying to get them all to charge, do a suicide charge up the hill is amazing.
Well, and then the one after where he shows up at the place and then kind of has to debrief Starros. Nick Nolte, he's in contrast with Starros, who's the head of the company. And pretty much their conflict is, he's the old school, you need to do what I say. I don't care how many people it takes. We need to get that, position. Yeah. But the reason for that, and that's how he starts out with John Travolta, is he's been passed over for promotions, and he's trying to get his glory, get his place that he believes he deserves, while having no actual war experience. He says that too, that this is his first experience with war.
He missed out on the big one, didn't he?
So that's where his character's coming from, and ultimately, this is a war is hell movie. Lots of people get blown up. There are a lot of dead bodies throughout, lots of people getting shot. But, there's the, gosh, where was I going with that? I don't know.
I think Woody Harrelson's character gets the worst death, doesn't he? Accidentally setting off a grenade and blowing his ass off, as he puts it.
Yep. But they reassure him. But you stopped all of us from dying because you rolled over on your backside. You took the whole of the blast. There's all of these moments of individual heroism from different types of characters, and it, like I was referring to earlier, it's not about how many people are you murdering. It's Starros going, no, I'm not going to charge. I'm going to defy your order. It's Sean Penn, who's very, he's stoic. He's very much about the military, but he runs out, just into land to give a guy morphine so that he'll stop suffering as he dies from being shot in the gut. And we see another guy try and do that and get killed. There's it's not a subtle film at all, other than in terms of how do you discuss the editing and the specific shots used and some of the more surreal imagery within the context of this kind of film. But there's a guy who's just a crazy guy, and his whole thing is he says funny stuff, and I don't know who the actor is, I don't know who the character is, but there's a point where he's standing up going, I'm not dying, why am I not dying, I'm standing here, and he's holding his knife and his gun. And then he's never in the movie again. He's just the guy who went a little nuts on the battlefield.
He's one of Stanley Kubrick's randomly appearing soldiers. If you've never noticed, watch the final part of Full Metal Jacket where they at the wall and then they go in to sort of take on the snipers, and between shots count how many people are actually there. It goes like 5 and then there's 7 and then there's 6 and then there's 5. There's a couple that just to keep appearing and disappearing. So I reckon he's one of them.
And that's, you know, part of showing the holistic experience of war. You get the people who are against it, you get the people who are scared, you get the people who are like, I'll just run in, you know, I'm not scared to do that. There's a guy who gets sick, and then he gets a sick day from war. And all the other soldiers are like, oh, he gets to leave, that's stupid. Yeah, but then John Cusack, he gets his moment where he's the Medal of Honor guy. He and a few other, you know, sort of main characters, they go up the ridge and they kill the Japanese people, blow up their bunker to take that position where they've been like machine gunning them from. And that's from 45 minutes until maybe the hour and a half mark. It's just people getting shot by machine guns and trying not to get shot by machine guns.
I was going to say they're climbing up that hill until like just over the 2 hour, around the 2 hour mark. The 3 hour movie. It's a good hour and a quarter of climbing up a hill, and that's what makes it work, I think.
And I say that scene, you know, trying to get to the bunker, trying to get up that hill is almost like the main set piece of the film and the most tense and effective kind of scene of warfare by some distance for me. And you also got to bear in mind that, like, for that whole passage of the film as well, they were without water. You know, they've been walking for days through the jungle and they've run out of water, and it's like it's the most common complaint that's been fed back to Nick Nolte. It's like troops they'd be all right, but you know, they haven't got any water. If we could just get some water, they'd be okay. But it's like, oh, they need to man up. They can.
And that's what, you know, Nick Nolte keeps saying, oh, we'll get water, don't worry about water. When he's talking to John Cusack, he says, I'm going to get you the biggest recommendation that I guess the Medal of Honor is what he means. And John Cusack says, yeah, I don't care about that, can my guys get water? They would like water. And you know, that's really interesting in the way that Nolte frames it, is like, that's naive that you're worrying about that. What you need to be worried about is glory and honors and killing people, and not about, you know, making sure that things are run properly. And so after that, and also in that section, that's where the whole like burned out forest is. So they're walking through that just complete scorched earth. So hey, what have they won? They've won position with nothing in it, just some dying Japanese people, and that's also the point where the film moves away from purely focusing on American soldiers to, we also see the Japanese soldiers who they speak Japanese, they, you know, they seem, I saw a comment online that said, why are all the Japanese people mentally disabled? And it's like, well, have you missed all of the Americans? You just know what they're saying. Like, they're clearly suffering from the exact same problems of war that the Americans are. They're just a little more expressive, maybe, whether that's the actor's choice or the characters themselves, their experiences. But you also have some Japanese characters.
Or just the way the Japanese language sounds to Western ears, you know?
Yeah, because you have the crazy guy who on the American side, who's very clearly crazy. You have the people who are dying, who've watched their friends die and have a really hard time with that. Like, the Japanese are going through the same thing, and Malik's camera allows us to live in that, and they're not just an other, they're not a evil, you know, because that was the propaganda at the time. The Japanese are evil and will murder you at any cost, any way they can.
And I think it's important that they're given a face and a voice. You know, they're actually a real presence. They're actually people in this. I mean, even Spielberg, in Saving Private Ryan, he didn't really bother representing, the German side of it, essentially. No, not that you want like prominent character, or anything, but just giving them a face, which they're just usually like a faceless kind of threat somewhere in the distance shooting at us. Aren't they? There was. I think that there's just the one soldier who gets, they pull out and they shoot in the head, don't they? Before after he's begged for his life, basically. I think this is definitely preferable to at least show them as people going through the same horrible experience as the Americans are.
We see the cruelty of like some of the American soldiers, which I mean we've seen what they've gone through, like what the guy who's just beating them to death and shotguns one is saying. He watched his friends be killed by these, like it's wrong. I absolutely believe that. It's also hard for me to not watch that and have intellectual understanding of his irrational decision making, because there's the earlier bit too where whoever the redhead guy is, he's talking about like, I just killed a guy, my first kill, that's worse than rape, like this is the ultimate sin, and that's, you're in war, like that's just the first death for him. And I think earlier in the movie he's the guy that's like, I need a pistol because what are they gonna do if they run at me with those samurai swords, and he's never killed anybody. So there's that like bluster externally, but then internally, and I'm reading this wrong entirely if he's not that guy, because it might have been the Italian guy from Brooklyn, but
I think it's the redhead guy, Dash Mihawk.
And
I have seen other things, I'm sure. No,
I feel like he's worn glasses somewhere. He's in like some comedic stuff, I feel like, but I could be wrong. The scene where the guy has pliers, and then they cut to him later, and he has all these like gold teeth that he's extracted from like guys' mouths, and he's sitting there taunting the other Japanese guy next to him who's dying from a gunshot wound. There's Japanese characters, one's dead in the trench and the other's like hugging him and holding his face and crying, and they are people, and this isn't to say that like Japanese people compare with like nature, that's not how I mean this, but I think Malik's ethic allows him to elevate everything to the same status. When we see the trees, we see them in a sense of wonder, in a sense of like, this has value and this has meaning equal to a human subject. And it, the way that he treats the landscape, treats the land, and the native people, throughout this movie, gives them, screen time and consideration. How many other war films do we watch where they're fighting, in this other place, and then we actually get to see like, specifically, how do the people that live in that place feel about it in like World War II movies?
I always like the feeling of this being like a true epic as well. It's a war film, it's an epic war film, isn't it? And just the time you're given, to really kind of soak in kind of this other culture essentially, and how this war that's really got nothing to do with these people on these islands really is just kind of spilling over, and they get caught in the middle, and nature is showing like the the cost of that, basically.
The shot of the baby bird, which I'm sure what happened there was they just found a dying baby bird with like a hurt wing or whatever, and it happened to work. But like, that shot to me is like, it's so just indicative of what's going on, what the real sin is. Like, it's not just killing people, but it's there's dogs in it. And I'm like, God, how many dogs died in World War II that were just wandering around being stray dogs? That's so sad. But there's a ton of violence in this movie. I saw, I don't remember if it was on Wiki or if I was reading like a review or something, and it says, Malik there will be a shot fired, and then it will cut to a tree exploding. No, that's not true. There are people just brutally dying on screen constantly.
And I think what's worse about that is how it lingers, and I think that's why it's an 18 certificate over here, because you don't just see people shot, but you see people dying slowly and painfully after being shot. It's like
without limbs. There's they come across early on in the movie these like just two dismembered bodies from an explosion, and they all just stand there and look at them and go, oh yeah, that's gonna be us pretty soon. But Jim Caviezel is talking about like, philosophy or whatever. And unfortunately, the wife guy, his wife dumps him. He had quit his officer position, gone back to America for his wife, and then he was conscripted. And so he both lost his position, and then also his wife sent him a Dear John letter during their downtime. They have a lot of drinks, which is nice for them. And unfortunately, you do have to go back to war after your week of leave. And so they're back out in the jungle. And after early on in the movie, Jim Caviezel's like, I hope I'm really calm when I die like my mom was. And then he has his Tree of Life flashback to his mom dying.
Yeah.
And obviously, I guess Tree of Life would have its Thin Red Line flashbacks, but whatever. Jim Caviezel, he's out with his buddies to do something for a patrol. That's where Adrian Brody, like the majority of his screen time is in this scene and his 2 lines. They're going up river and the Japanese are coming. They shoot one of the guys and Jim Caviezel's like, I'll stay behind and hold him off. Take care of the shot guy. Fife, you head back. You go tell Sean Penn what's going on. And so Adrian Brody, he looks worried and he runs through the jungle. And Jim Caviezel does. He like kind of leads the Japanese away a little bit, and then he's surrounded and he's shot. And it just life goes on. He did face it calmly at the very least. That was nice for him. And then Sean Penn does some narration now that Jim Caviezel is dead, and like you said, George Clooney shows up and he's the new guy in charge, and so he has to talk about his personal leadership style, which is, I'm the father, Sean Penn's the mother, and you're all the children. And Sean Penn is narrating in between that. So it's very much a Malick movie. If you haven't seen The Thin Red Line, you're like, oh yeah, I guess I'll watch a World War II movie that came out the same year as Saving Private Ryan. No, you're watching a Terrence Malick movie that happens to be about war, not the other way around.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think the last couple shots, it's ocean, and then it's, I don't remember what the in-between one, and then there's a beach with like a little, tree starting to sprout, and it's very cyclical. I would not be surprised if he then was like, okay, now I'm going to start a Vietnam treatment. That's, I shoot this exact same tree. I don't, Nick Nolte has a bit where he talks about, oh, you see that jungle in there? Yeah, everything in there constricts and kills everything else. That's just nature. And I think what Malick is ultimately saying with this film is, yeah, that nature is all of it. It's not just peace and harmony. It's also the death and the war and the destruction, and it's all natural. And we have to exist anyway, and we have to find the best way to think about it throughout. Is what is presumed that he thinks, based on both the film and his existentialist interests.
Considering he went missing for 20 years, who actually knows?
Yeah.
I was just wondering what he's doing next, and apparently in 2019 it was announced that he was doing a Jesus movie. So tells the story of Jesus' life through a series of parables. It was filmed 2020. As of 2024, Malick is still editing the film. But the most exciting, it's called The Way of the Wind, apparently. The most exciting thing about
Isn't
it
that
is apparently...
Yeah.
What's exciting about it is apparently it features Mark Rylance as 4 versions of Satan.
That's amazing. I cannot wait to watch this.
I tell you what, I'm not a massive Malick person, but I just want to see that. I don't care what else.
Who plays Jesus?
Terrence Malick himself.
It's someone I've Gazer Roig. Never heard of him. Matthias Schoenaerts is St. Peter, apparently.
Okay, so we're gonna have a lot of Gazer Roig monologuing just about, I don't know, who is my father? Why has he forsaken me? What is this power that I have? I'm very excited.
I've just realised I've not seen a Malick film for the past decade. It's the most prolific period of his life, and I've not seen anything from Knights Cups onwards. So,
Wow.
yeah.
You haven't seen A Hidden Life?
No?
That's impressive that you managed to avoid that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm excited for this now. What's it? Oh, that's the code name. Is The Last Planet, The Way of the Wind.
Just to very quickly point out that Thin Red Line essentially did a Shawshank Redemption, which is get nominated for 7 Oscars and not win any of them. So it got nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay based on previously published material or producer published that's adapted screenplay. Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Original Dramatic Score, Best Sound, and all of them. Boo! Something I did see is that for the Online Film and Television Association Awards, so this must have been very early, considering this is 1998 or 99, and the internet's only just been around then. It got nominated for 12 awards: Best Picture, Best Drama Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor for Nolte, Best Screenplay based on another material from another medium, Best Cinematography, Editing, Drama Score, Sound Effects Ensemble, and Drama Ensemble, and won none of them. So the internet didn't like it. They're like, we like it, but it's not. Meh.
But by the way, the music's credited to Hans Zimmer, and yes, he does that very motivating main theme, like key points in the film, and he's very proud of that because he's prominently featured that in his live shows the past few years. But it's mostly, again, like just like all of his cast, it ends up on the customary floor. I think he chucks out most. I think Hans Zimmer did enough music apparently for most, to accompany the whole running time. But I think Matt just picks like a key passage and then chuck the rest, and then filled the other musical bits with found music, classical pieces. So.
Well, here's the thing. Malick was, already revered as like a legend at this point. I'm pretty sure people were like clamoring to work with him, to be in this film, and for whatever you think of the rest of his filmography, the guy knows what he wants, and he's going to deliver exactly on his style and his way of filmmaking, and it works for me. I'm a fan of it. We've done 2 or 3 of his films on this show now, and I'll keep doing them because I love the way he makes movies.
You're allowed to.
Yes. But it's a shame that he just kind of disappeared for 10, 15 years and didn't actually make any movies, because we could have so many more from him.
This is when we find out he actually made sort of like 10 movies in that time and has just got them all in like a vault somewhere.
Yeah. To be released upon my death.
100 years after his passing, sort of thing.
At the very least, he does have screenplays that he never made. I think that the Big Bang part of the Tree of Life was based on just a completely different movie, and he was like, "Oh, I'll put it in here, sure."
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so that's it for. I mean, yesterday was Remembrance Day, but that's it for it on this episode. So we'll be back next week with something else. Until then, guys, where can people find you?
You can find me at SSP Thinks Film and at the Second Cut Pod Substack. Nothing new for me up there yet. My Frankenstein review is still there, so seems to be doing pretty well. So keep reading it, and definitely check it out on Netflix if you haven't already.
Yeah. Hopefully you don't find me anywhere. If you do, I'm Judgmental in the various places. I've got a couple of things new up there. A review of Black Phone 2 and Shelby Oaks, which I said last time were drafted, so they're now up. And I've also got my review of Predator Badlands as well. So go check those out.
And you can find me at Jacob Film Guy. And God, I cannot stop staring at this Wikipedia page for The Way of the Wind. The cast is gigantic. Yeah, go watch Terrence Malick movies. Go watch Tree of Life. Go I don't know, watch The Knight of Cups. Is that the music one, or is it the other Christian Bale one?
I don't know because I've not seen Knight of Cups. I've no idea what it is. Yeah, watch more Malick films, watch more James Whale films, and watch more silent films. Full stop. Educate yourselves.
Yes. I think the other one's the music one. Okay. Well, that's it for this week. Thank you for listening. Oh, find us at Second Cut Pod. Email secondcutpod@gmail.com. That's it. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Adios.
Goodbye.